Hi, I'm Victor.
Hi, welcome.
What if the world of unconditional love and incredible peace described by so many near-death experiencers is available to us here now without us having to die? I'm going to describe to you the condition I was in from the childhood I grew up with, how it affected me, the extremely dark place it took me. I'm going to describe to you my complete obsession with death, with wanting to die. And then I'll tell you about a series of accidents that I had where I believe that I was informed all the different ways there are to die, main basic ways to die, what they felt like, and what happens afterward. Then I'm going to tell you about a string of what people call synchronicities, some apparently magical events that took place in my life over the course of the last about 15 years. I grew up in southeastern Wisconsin. It's a Midwestern area, pretty much in the middle of a bunch of farm fields, right on a subdivision. It's a middle-class neighborhood, nice houses in good repair, working-class people. Everything looked great from the outside. I enjoyed playing in nature. I enjoyed riding my bike with my friends. We'd often ride many miles down to the nearest town, Eagle, and buy ice cream and go play in the park unsupervised, which is unheard of these days. And that was what I enjoyed. We'd take our BB guns out into the forest and shoot everything we could, even each other. We would get into mischief here and there. That's what I did with my time. We spent loads and loads of time in nature. I have 3 sisters, 2 older than me. The oldest is 8 years older and 1 younger than me. And my dad was a used car salesman who became a mechanic. He worked 12-hour days and usually just came home and slept after work. And when he wasn't sleeping, he was in front of the television drinking beer. So I never really got to know him. We'd go out camping as a family for a week at a time, which was always great. Those were the closest times I had with my father. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. She would always be ready with the meals and always available whenever she was needed. Constantly had her nose in a book. I remember she used to bring home these, I'm not sure what kind of bags they were, but these just probably 20-gallon plastic bags filled with novels, and we'd just plow through them over a couple of weeks, and then we'd go back. Come on, Victor, we're going back to the library. So that was kind of an idea of the framework for my childhood, though all was not well. The drinking led to its problems with my father. He would have these intense emotional outbursts where he would just start yelling. I got it the worst. My sisters have still not forgiven him for the way that he treated me. I was oblivious to it at the time. I think I just blocked it out. But it was sort of a foreshadow of what was going to happen later in my life. By the time I was about 8 or 9 years old, my mother and father's relationship was strained. My mother was growing tired of the situation. She didn't want to be at home anymore, and she told my father she wanted to get a job. So she got a job as a waitress, where she met, or she spent more time with, more like a man who was dealing drugs to her and my father. Their relationship became closer and closer. She said that she was falling in love. She told my father she wanted a divorce, and my father, complying, agreed to it. Well, this man was quite more rough than my hippie rock star type father. My parents were both stereotypical hippies from the 70s. Both had, hair down to here, bell bottom wearing, Pink Floyd listening. I remember my dad cranking a Joe Walsh CD on the family stereo so loud the dog was hiding. So this man very rapidly moved into the family home. He was a very muscular guy. I'm assuming he might have used steroids at some point in his life. He was a carpenter, lots of tattoos, and like I said, he was a drug dealer. I didn't know this at the time. Well, it didn't take long for him to start showing his instabilities. He would wait until the house was empty and just unleash all of his anger toward me. It didn't take much to set him off. One time I had left a bag of potato chips open on the countertop, and for the next 45 minutes or so, he just screamed the most belligerent language. I can't even repeat it, until I would be cowering in the corner, completely emotionless. Or it could be I took a screwdriver from his stock in the garage and I was repairing my stereo when I was 12 years old in my bedroom and forgot to put it back, sent him into a rage. After a while, I stopped having emotional reactions to his outbursts. I started to go completely numb. I didn't cry anymore. I didn't have like a recovery period. I just stayed down. It was easier to stay hurt and to stay numb than it was to allow myself to feel okay again, only to have that feeling crushed. My mother didn't know this was going on. Like I said, he was doing this usually when there was nobody home. But by the time I was 14, I was depressed. I felt like life was meaningless. The Catholic church that my mother had taken us to as a child seemed to be not providing any hope anymore. I just felt empty inside. I needed something in my life. My mother constantly complaining about finances drove me to want to become wealthy. I wanted to become a millionaire so that I could pay off the house and finally give my mother some peace. So I decided to become a rock star. I bought a guitar and started practicing, but I wasn't playing the way that the rock stars were playing. So I thought maybe I needed to try drugs. I heard that drugs could give you a greater insight into the world, give you spiritual knowledge, and enlighten you. But I didn't know where to get drugs. I was only 14 years old. I'd heard that sometimes marijuana grows in ditches. What I started doing is riding my bike around, looking in the ditches for these 5-pointed leaf plants. I found some and picked it, called my buddies up, hey, get over here, I think I've got some weed. We would roll it up in some paper towels and get some matches from the kitchen and smoke it in the little tree house we had in the backyard and cough and say, I think it's working. But it never was the real thing. My increasing frustration with not being able to find this enlightening drug that I thought I needed only drove me to want to find it more. Until one day I was in the basement rummaging around near the washer and dryer when I saw a Ziploc bag filled with these green puffy things. I don't know how I recognized it because it didn't look like anything the DARE police had shown us at the school meetings, but I knew that that was marijuana. I grabbed the bag, not thinking where it might have come from, ran up to my bedroom, stuffed it into this elaborate makeshift pipe that I had created with stuff from my stepdad's garage, and took a big puff of it right there in my bedroom. I put it down, and in a few minutes, I began to feel disoriented. I picked up my guitar, and suddenly I could play as good as Jimi Hendrix. I sat there for a few minutes, making guitar history, and then put the guitar down and wandered around my room in a daze when I heard my mother's van pulling up. Uh-oh. She came inside, immediately came into my room. What's that smell? Oh, I think it's this incense that I bought. It's a new incense. It smells kind of weird. I don't know if I like it. No, it smells like marijuana. Well, that's weird. She says, why don't you come with me? She takes me down into the basement, and we sit at the very table where I got this bag of weed from. And she says, I need to explain something to you, Victor. We have a secret. See, your stepdad and I, we both smoke pot. I was shocked. My parents, they go to work, they take care of their appearances, they dress nice, they have new cars, the house was clean, it didn't need repair, we all had clothes. They didn't match the stereotype of drug addicts that I'd been led to believe is how it is. Sitting there in shock, she described driving home from work and smoking a bowl, she called it, with her husband. I was just speechless. So eventually she offered to smoke with me right then and there. I turned it down, and she said anytime I'd like to use it, to just let her know, and she'd be happy to smoke it with me. I went back up to my room and started to process what I'd just experienced, and that was the beginning of a new era in my life. From then on, my mother and stepfather would give me weed as often as I wanted. I was never without it for many years afterward. I was always using it. The rule was that if I didn't keep my grades up, I had to stop. So I remained on the honor roll at school and continued using it. It fit well with the American Indian culture that I was very interested in, so I had this long hair down to here and started to adopt a hippie type of style with the baggy clothes and paisley shirts and other things I'm embarrassed to mention. It also made playing music a lot of fun. Playing music was probably the only escape that I had from the nightmare of my home. Now that I was smoking marijuana with my parents, I no longer was innocent. I was an adult in their eyes. I was expected to behave as an adult. I was not allowed to respond to them in a negative way because it only exacerbated their own frustration, apparently. The abuse and the screaming became open. He started doing it in front of other family members. He started doing it in front of my friends. I was helping him on a construction job site one day, and I can't really repeat the things that he said, but he basically woke my friend and I up, my friend was spending the night after we had worked on the job site the entire day before, and he just screamed the most horrible things at me and my friend about our work ethic and our abilities. My friend came up from the bed and he said, do you remember those videos that we watched in high school about recognizing the different types of child abuse? And I said, yeah. And he said, that's you. You're being abused. that opened the door a little bit to myself realizing what was happening to me. My depression was not getting better. I started to really dislike being alive. I couldn't believe that if there was a God, that God would allow what was going on in my home to continue. I was a good person. I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. I didn't steal. I didn't hurt people. Yet, several times a week, I was subjected to this maniacal drill sergeant who would scream me into a paralysis that took days to recover from. I became suicidal. The only thing keeping me from ending my life was the fear that I might not stop existing, that I might just die, go to an afterlife, and have to come back. So I was terrified. I couldn't live any longer, and I couldn't die. I couldn't leave my parents' home because I was just a teenager. What am I going to do? I needed to know what happens when we die. I needed to know it because I wanted to die very badly. Very, very badly. I used to give myself challenges of going an entire week without fantasizing about suicide, and I never did it. I also needed to know what happens as we die. The whole death process seemed terrifying. To the best of my understanding, what happens is that our body gets broken, we can no longer move it, it lays on the ground until somebody picks it up. Meanwhile, we're entirely conscious, just unable to speak, unable to see or hear, and we are buried in the ground where bugs, worms, and bacteria pick us apart bit by bit while we suffer in agony. That was what I believed at about 15 years of age or so. Looking back, I'm now certain that my intense desire to understand these things set in motion a chain of events that these questions could be answered. I was determined to get my driver's license by the time I was 16, so I got my learner's permit at age 15 and a half. On my 16th birthday, I got my license, and my stepfather gave me my very own car. It was an old Ford Ranger, tiny little tin can truck. You see these tiny Toyotas driving around. Now, I don't see any of the Ford Rangers anymore, but the tiny Toyotas, they look like you can lift them if you wanted to. But that's the kind of truck I had. No airbags. That's what I was driving. So one night, my buddy called me up, and he said, "Hey, Dogue, get over." And my nickname was Dogue. I don't know. But he said, "Hey, get over here as fast as you can." I thought, oh, I'm going to get over there so fast, it's going to blow his mind. He lived about 4 miles down the road. So it's about 8:30 at night, December. The snow had melted temporarily. I get into my truck, and I've got this water pipe. He was a marijuana user also. I pop it into the inside of my jacket pocket, and I'm driving down the road. I don't have my seatbelt on, and I'm going to get over there at lightning speed. I floor the gas pedal. I'm flying down this straightaway, this country road. It had hills, but it was straight. I knew the road so well, and I maxed out the speedometer. Top speed was 85 on the speedometer, and I had it, buried in the needle, as they say. I came up to a hill that I couldn't see the other side of, decided that there could be a deer on the other side. I'd better let off the gas. So I let off the gas, came up over the hill. That's when I saw the entire stretch of road in front of me glistening like glass with black ice. The trees had shaded that area of road and caused the ice to not melt. When I hit that ice, it was exactly the same as being in a dream where you're falling off of a building and you know that you're going to die, you accept that you're going to die, you're completely numb with adrenaline. Time seemed to slow down, and I felt detached. I felt detached from the outcome. There was a combination of incredible peace and acceptance and unprecedented terror. The steering wheel was flopping side to side. I had no way to steer. The truck was hurtling down the road. On one side of me was old growth forest. On the other side was very old trees, oaks and maples, probably on average this big in diameter, and farm field after the trees. So I remember jamming my feet into the floorboards of the truck involuntarily and thinking to myself, maybe I'll go between the trees and just launch into the field and I'll survive. The last thing I know is I saw a very large tree brightly lit in my headlights. And the next thing I'm doing, I'm standing in the ditch, in the dark, in this light snow. I turn around and I see this truck just mangled and steaming in the bushes. And I felt fantastic. I thought to myself, that's the coolest thing I've ever experienced. That was so much fun. Wow. I just crashed a truck at 75 miles per hour. That was really neat. I need to get to my friend's house. He's expecting me. That's probably the best place I can go, and then I can sort this situation out. So I started walking away, still feeling great. About halfway, I thought, ooh, the police are going to get involved. I took out my little water pipe and put it behind a pine tree and memorized the exact pine tree so that I could tell my mother later to go pick it up. When I got back to the road, I felt something funny in my mouth. Moving my tongue around, my teeth felt weird. And I put my finger in there and I noticed that all these top teeth were pointing toward the back of my throat. I had hit my face so hard on something that it smashed all my teeth totally inward. There was blood pouring out of my face, soaking my shirt. No pain whatsoever. Here I was, totally worried about the possibility of dying violently, how painful it would be to have my body damaged so quickly and viciously. Yet, all of my top teeth were smashed. And not only was I not in pain, I was in a great mood. I felt great. I was walking down the road. I got to my friend's house. It was about a 1.5 mile walk. I entered his door, and in the living room, I saw across the house his mom and dad and his little sister were sitting around the Christmas tree. I think they were putting presents out. And as soon as they saw me, this look of horror came over their face. And I said, I think I need an ambulance. And they jumped up, and as soon as their attention came on to me, I think the full gravity of the situation hit me, and I started to feel faint. So I said, I think I'm going to pass out. I laid down, put my feet up. The room started kind of fading. The next thing I know, there were paramedics and police officers all around me. They asked me how fast I was going. I told them 55. I knew they wouldn't believe I was going the speed limit because the truck was like a crushed beer can. They gave me a break, didn't give me a speeding ticket. Later found out that they got to the accident scene before anybody had told them that I was found. Didn't bother looking for a survivor, just looked for a body. It was such a bad wreck. The truck hit the tree so hard that the engine was in the driver's compartment. If I had been wearing my seatbelt, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today. I was ejected out of the driver's side door. They took me to the hospital, gave me x-rays. I had crushed bones in both of my ankles. I walked on them for probably 2 miles. Once I was at the hospital, the pain set in. It became a nightmare world of incredible pain. They gave me Demerol. They gave me Vicodin. The pain sort of subsided over a couple days. I went to the dentist. The dentist put his thumb in my mouth, yanked all the teeth into place, installed internal braces, put me on a liquid diet for a month, and my teeth are fine. That was 20 years ago. Very lucky. I'm grateful for that. This was my first lesson about what it's like to die. My second lesson came a little while later. I started wondering if I had major health problems. Maybe I had a parasitic infection that nobody knew about. I didn't believe that I would get any help from regular medical doctors, so I wanted to take things into my own hands. What I was going to do is drink an entire gallon of water in a minute. My theory was that if I drank all this water in a minute, it would flush my entire GI tract out and just go right through me, and it would dislodge these worms who were sucking my energy away and killing my body. Well, I went into my mother's bathroom, had the jug of water on the counter, standing next to the toilet there, and just started drinking. I drank until I felt sick, and I kept going, having faith that my stomach would just open up and it would let all the water through. Sure enough, I probably got through about 3/4 of the gallon, almost the whole thing, when the water started coming through me. I felt really great. My theory was true. I can flush myself out with water. I didn't see any parasites come out of me, but experiment was a success. I left the bathroom, decided to go lay down on the couch in the living room, when I noticed laying on the couch that my feet were starting to go numb. Then my hands started to go numb. Then this numbness started spreading up my limbs into my chest. Once it got to my chest, it started to get difficult to take a breath. At that point, I started to get scared. I didn't know what was happening to me, and this was all happening quickly. The room began to get really bright, almost like it was backlit. The walls started to get bright until they were hard to see behind this light. Then in the center of the room, there was an extra bright area. I'm looking around, laying on my back on the couch, and when I point my vision at this extra bright area, I felt this thud of emotion in my chest. And I knew that I was about to die. I didn't logically think that I was in danger, maybe I was dying. I just knew that I was about to die. The finality of death became completely apparent to me. My whole story was about to be over. I was going to lose my name. I was going to lose all of my memories. I was going to lose all of the talents I had acquired. I was going to lose my friends. And surprisingly, I felt such grief about losing my enemies. All these characters in my life were part of a storybook that, even though it was extremely painful and it made me want to die almost every day, I was really sad to potentially see it go, to see the storybook closed. I decided to fight. I didn't want to go. I got myself up off the couch. I didn't know what to do. I heard that if you're feeling faint, you should put on loose-fitting clothing. Supporting myself along the wall, I made my way out of the living room, through the kitchen, down the stairs to my bedroom, got some loose-fitting clothing on, came back up the stairs, and in the kitchen I saw my mother with her back to me chopping vegetables for dinner. It was a half desperation, half intuition. Just started talking to my mother, making small talk. Hey Mom, how's it going? Pretty unusual for me to start a conversation like that with my mother. She turns around and, how are you doing? I say, oh, I'm all right. I'm leaning against the wall, probably no color in my face, looking like I'm gonna collapse. And she's just talking to me. What are you up to? It was as if I could feel the vibration of her words in my skin. And as the vibration of her words hit my skin, it spread this warmth over my body. The longer she spoke to me, the more statements she made to me, the more this warmth spread over my body. It seemed to rejuvenate me. I was getting sensation back in my hands and feeling like I can stand. Until after about a minute of talking with her, I felt strong enough to walk away and hide unless she would figure out that I had just made a big mistake. I started thinking about that. It really seemed like my mother's affection for me and her love for me brought me back to life. If I can bring someone back to life with my attention and my affection, the way that we can make plants more vigorous by talking to them and caressing them. I don't know if you've heard about that, but you can talk to a plant and touch it and it will actually make it stronger. Can I hurt people by being angry at them? By hating them? Maybe I can take their life away that way. I decided I'd better be really careful with how I think and feel about people. My next lesson about death came a few years later when my friends and I wanted to have a psychedelic experience to get more wisdom and understanding about life. We didn't have access to really powerful psychedelics, so we decided to eat morning glory seeds. They contain a chemical called LSA, which is very similar to LSD. It's not as potent. It has a long history of use by shamans. The native peoples of Hawaii would use Hawaiian baby wood rose flower seeds to induce a psychoactive state and talk to the spirit world. So we would go to the grocery store, the Pick and Save, and buy handfuls of packets of these seeds. So you can picture a bunch of 19-year-old kids with handfuls of morning glory seeds, long hair and beards and raggedy, rebellious clothing, coming up to the register, and you knew that these guys weren't about to go plant a bunch of flowers. We got them home. We were at my buddy's house. That's where this was all going to take place. Ground them up in a coffee grinder and swallowed them down. So the host immediately started vomiting. The rest of us managed to keep it down. He actually, well, he got his dose. Let me just put it that way. And after about an hour and a half or so, it kicked in. It was a mild hallucinogen. Colors were more vivid. I felt more connected to my environment, more connected to the earth. Greater sense of brotherhood with my friends. There were about 5 of us there. Sounds were more vivid. It was a nice experience. It wasn't transformative. Didn't go into the light or anything. Mostly we just sat around the campfire. At about 2 or 3 a.m., the effects were wearing off. People were getting tired, and people were starting to file out. So we're saying our goodbyes, and I'm sitting there next to the fire with my socks and shoes off, digging my toes into the dirt, when I notice that I can't feel the dirt with my toes. Oh, that's strange. My buddy says, okay, I'm gonna go to bed. You wanna come inside and go to bed? And I say, sure. We both go inside. We're gonna go sit in the living room, and I say to him, I'm not quite ready for sleep yet. Do you have any DVD I could watch or something while I sit and just kind of relax? So he puts on a Grateful Dead DVD. It's all these dancing skeletons. It was really, really enhanced the experience I was about to have. Well, he goes to sleep on the couch, immediately snoring, while I'm sitting there in this armchair feeling sick. This numbness had begun to spread up my legs, and it was in my hands now. And also along with that, there was a sensation like I had been stabbed in the abdomen. I found out later on that morning glory seeds that you purchase in a grocery store are coated with a digestive irritant to discourage people from eating them and using them as a drug. So I'm having waves of powerful nausea and dread come over my body. The hallucinogenic effects have worn off at this point. Now I'm clenching the armrests of this chair, trying to keep sensation in my body, feeling very afraid. Every few seconds, this wave of awful illness came over me. And with each wave of awful illness, it was awful. Awful illness. Did I mention it was awful? The sun is pouring out down onto the ground outside. It's morning. And as these waves of sickness came over me, I had this realization that if these waves of sickness kept coming, something really bad was about to happen to me. It was almost like an alarm went off inside of me. Sure enough, big wave of illness came over me, and something very peculiar happened. I've identified the exact sensation. When we get the stomach flu, or we get food poisoning, or we just eat something that doesn't agree with us and we have to get sick, there's this involuntary clenching of our torso. You can't stop it, you know it's coming, you just sort of yield to it. That exact involuntary clenching sensation came over my entire body, from the bottoms of my feet all the way to the top of my head, just and I was looking out from the top of my head. I could see my forehead in the bottom of my field of vision. Sickness completely gone. It was such a smooth transition that I didn't think twice about it. Here I am, just looking around, observing. I hear this very gentle voice coming from behind me as my vision turns involuntarily toward the window. It's beautiful outside. The voice says, "You can go out that way. You've been that way before. It's familiar to you. If you leave now, your friend is going to wake up next to a corpse, and he's never going to recover from it. Or you can go back to your body and you can face the sickness." I thought to myself, I don't need to leave now. Somehow I had this higher understanding that I just didn't need to leave now, and I didn't want to hurt my friend. I decided to go back to my body and face the sickness. Immediately, I'm looking out of my eyes again. Within 30 seconds, all the illness has just washed away. I was left with this overwhelming gratitude toward all things about life. I was digging my toes into the carpet, running my hands along the walls, just picking up things in the kitchen, the coffee pot, the spatula, just really enjoying all these things about life because I'd almost left it all behind. Again, I had this gratitude for all of my friends and my enemies, but it still didn't relieve my suicidal depression. I still didn't understand, if there was a God, why would God allow this suffering? Why are there starving children all over the world? Why are people dying of cancer all over? Why do we have to work 40 hours a week just to pay our rent and pay our food and whatnot? Why would an all-loving, all-powerful God allow all this stuff to happen? So I hated life still. In my journey to heal myself and fix myself emotionally, I found out about something called rebirthing breathwork. It was very popular in the 70s. It's becoming less popular. It's commonly called breathwork now, but it's a worldwide thing where you breathe in a very specific way for about an hour to 2 hours. People report all kinds of transcendent experiences, spontaneous healings, resolving lifelong negative patterns. I thought, that's what's for me. I need to do that. I got on a bus and went to the Bay Area of California, where my favorite rebirthing breath worker was living, and I had signed up for a session with him. I couldn't afford the $200 plus a night rooms in the area that he lived, so I decided to camp under the stars. I'm sleeping on the ground in the forest for 2 weeks in April in the Bay Area of California, freezing my butt off. I could only sleep for an hour, maybe 2 at a time, and after 2 weeks of doing this, the session was at the end of the 2 weeks, I became extremely sleep deprived. I could just sit down on a park bench, whatever, close my eyes, and immediately begin dreaming. Well, 2 weeks goes by, I do this rebirthing breathwork session. It's fantastic. I sat in a chair, I breathed for 2 hours straight. I felt this tremendous love all around me. Everything looked brighter. All objects in the room seemed to be emitting light, like they were glowing. And I turned to the man after it was done, and I said, I had no idea my body could feel this good. It was ecstasy. So after saying our goodbyes, I left his house to go find a place to sleep for the night and wait until my next session the next day. I'm walking down the road and I see this bank of grass and trees going down to some sand on a bay. I think that's a good place to sleep for the night. It's blocked from the road, nobody's going to see me, and some nice comfortable sand. I go down there and I've got a tarp at this point that I'm trying to use to keep warm, so I fold up this tarp and folded it like an envelope, closed on 3 sides, and slid my body into the top of it. And I just laid there on my back on the sand, looking up at the sky, looking at the trees, enjoying the sunshine. It wasn't a few seconds of laying there before my eyes popped open and it was dark. Huh, I thought, that's weird. I fell asleep on my back. I can never fall asleep on my back. I always roll to my side. So I decided to sit up. And as I made the motion to sit up where I was laying, the entire scene I was observing seemed to spin, and there, about 10 feet down, was my body laying on its back with its eyes closed, lit up pale blue in the moonlight. It was frightening. I tried to grab onto something. My hand went out about 15 feet in one direction, and I used the other hand. That one went out about 15 feet in the other direction, like a Stretch Armstrong doll. I couldn't grab onto anything. I realized I was floating. Nothing bad exactly was happening. Maybe I could go find God, see if he exists, maybe get some answers. So I decided to float away from my body. As I moved away, something peculiar happened. It wasn't like I was moving through space. It was just as if I was zooming out with a camera. It was like the image was just getting smaller and smaller. My body got smaller and smaller on the beach until the whole beach was there, getting smaller and smaller. I must have been traveling thousands of miles per hour. I was out to the edge of the planet, then out to the edge of the galaxy, and when I got out to the edge of the galaxy, I thought, this is strangely familiar. I wonder if I've done this before. I decided that if God existed, he would be at the oldest part of the universe, because that would be the part that was created first. So that's where he would be. I don't know how I found my way to the oldest part of the universe, but the next thing I know, here I am at this extremely dark area. There was no light. It was just this like inky blackness. I'm moving very slowly for some reason at this point. I still felt like I had a body, and I'm floating in this invisible body feeling into this blackness. Then I involuntarily turn around, and now I'm floating backward, and I stop. I look around, and I'm at the center of the universe, alone. It's just me. My exact thought was, oh yeah, that's right. I am God. The next thing I know, I'm back next to my body. This is where I had all of my questions answered. Meaning of suffering, the purpose of life, where we go when we die. Why can't we feel God in our life? How do we improve our life? I met my soul. I'd always believed that my soul was inside of my body, that it was this wispy little ghost that popped out and floated away when I died. But no, my soul was enormous. It was the size of a house. There was no way it would ever fit inside of a body. I felt this electricity. It felt like 60,000 volts going through me. Felt fantastic, just awesome. I could point my finger at a tree and it would burst into flames. I could move mountains with this voltage going through my sensation. The love was incredible. There would be no way to endure that kind of love in a body. If I were to feel that love right now, I would be incapacitated on the floor, unable to get up. It was like 1,000 mothers and 1,000 fathers all loving me at once. I was both male and female, not a blending of the two, but both at the same time. A perfect separation yet union of them. I knew absolutely everything. There was just nothing that I didn't know. The idea that Earth is a school and I'm here to learn, that went out the window. My being was completely perfect. It was infinite power, unconditional, infinite love, inescapable love. Nothing I could do ever in the universe could separate me from that love, and total wisdom. I knew everything. So my question would have been, why don't I feel that? Why am I sad because I have to go to work if I have this infinite soul? What happened next showed me. I would not have come back. I didn't think twice about having had a life. I didn't think twice about my body laying down there in the sand. I forgot my name. I forgot my family. I forgot everything. I was forced to slowly move back toward my body. The center of my soul, or more the edge of my soul, condensed into a body shape, almost like it was shaped like a body, like the Hollywood ghost kind of wispy smoke thing. And that body shape contained the exact nerve sensations of our body when we're alive. It was exactly the same. It was just like I didn't have any boundaries. I didn't have skin. I could stretch my arm as long as I want and touch the bark of a tree. It started forcing me toward my body. It was like hands on my shoulders. The closer I got to my body, laying there on the ground, the more I became aware of interference, of noise coming off of the flesh on the ground, like a fog or a veil. It wasn't coming from my soul. It wasn't coming from some divinely placed wall. It was literally coming off of the flesh itself, like the flesh was broken and making noise like a broken stereo or a broken radio receiver that only got static. The closer I got to it, the more dense this veil became. It was paradoxical. It was a fog that I couldn't see, and it was a noise that was silent. It was a numbness, but I could still feel. Soon I was beginning to wiggle my feet into my body through my shoulders. It was the most disgusting feeling. Imagine finding a corpse that had been dead for 2 weeks, advanced state of decay, slice it open lengthwise, take your clothes off, and climb into it. That was exactly the sensation. So I'm wiggling into this body involuntarily, revolted, just so grossed out. I was able to peer into my bloodstream, and I saw this putrefaction of food particles in my blood. This body had never been alive. It was always dead. The amount of life force inside of it was so small that it only had the appearance of life. It was barely animated. The potential of the soul was so great compared to what was actually in my body that it'd be better to describe the body as dead than alive. I'm wiggling in, and the further I get into my body, the less I'm aware of this love, the less I'm aware of this knowledge and this power, until I'm all the way in, and I'm clenching as hard as I can to keep this memory. My eyes pop open, I sit up, I'm gasping. My lungs were completely empty. My body's filled with adrenaline. Every cell in my body screaming at me that I just almost died. I am terrified. My whole experience is a complete afterthought. I get up from the sand. I'm pacing around. I don't know what just happened to me. I've never heard my lungs make that sound ever in my life. I'm too afraid to go to sleep for the rest of the night. Traumatized for months. I needed to figure out what happened to me. I thought I asphyxiated myself with the tarp. I wrapped myself in garbage bags one day, taped them around my neck, trying to cut off airflow to my skin to see if it happened again. Nope. It wasn't until I got my first relationship that I found out that I occasionally stop breathing in my sleep for long periods of time and choke. Well, things were about to change for me. This whole experience was in the back of my mind. It didn't have an impact on me at the time. I was living with my father, finally having gotten away from my abusive stepdad, when I got a job at a McDonald's, making minimum wage, really going nowhere in life. So I'm about 20 years old at this point. I'm eating organic food a lot, continuously trying to improve the health of my body, when I find out about a job opening at a newly built organic food store. I apply, and sure enough, I get the job because of my passion for health and my passion for organic food and my attempts to clean up this zombie body, this putrefying food particles in this body. I was determined to heal this flesh. So that's why I was passionate about this organic food. Well, while I'm there, I meet a woman, and she's 15 years older than me. We hit it off, became friends, and I'm complaining about my dad one day, and she says, well, why don't you come rent a room at my place? I thought that'd be a great idea. Finally got out of my dad's place, moved in with her. She's a former calendar model, very attractive woman, and I'm an extremely shy, very depressed guy who believed that he was complete garbage from the constant brainwashing of my family members, and no way anyone would want me, no way anyone would love me. Well, this woman and I fell in love, had a very brief relationship. And this was only the beginning of the universe reprogramming me. It was a major turning point in my life to believe that anyone could take an interest in, pick any insult you want, a guy like me. By brief, I mean like 2 weeks. After that, I fell into the typical extreme depression of breakup. I had to get her back. We were meant to be together, you see. I wanted to become wealthy so she'd fall in love with me. I found a book called Ask and It Is Given by Esther Hicks, the law of attraction stuff. And in this book, they talked about using attraction power to acquire wealth. One of the techniques they described was using meditation. So I started setting a timer for 10 or 15 minutes, no more than that, in the morning, as per the instructions in the book, breathing in as much as I could, a little bit more, then slowly letting it out, counting each breath, keeping my mind clear. In the book, they said that to be careful because all hell is going to break loose in your life. What was happening is your lower vibrational patterns are being broken up by this meditation. Well, probably 3 weeks into the meditation, she calls me at my job while I'm working overtime to pay her mortgage, to pay for her to go to school, and says, you need to move out. So I get home at 6 a.m. and I left something out. I should have mentioned that in this time period, I acquired another job and tripled my income. So I'm at this other job. I get home at 6 a.m., throw all my stuff in boxes, pack my car, throw my key on the table, and I'm gone. I've vanished. I'm back at my father's house. I need to find a place. Can't stand living with my dad. Pop up in the newspaper. First newspaper I looked at, in the advertisements, there's an apartment in a historic Civil War mansion in southeast Wisconsin above a bar, so I get to play my music. It has a yard. It's on well water. It's better than I could have wanted. And you'll notice this kind of thing with these synchronicities and manifestation. They're better than you could have wanted. I got the place. 2 weeks later, I meet a girl who's my own age. She's wonderful. We get into a relationship, move in together. 6 months after this, I decide I want to be a professional rebirthing breathwork instructor. She goads me on, and we both come down to Virginia. As we're taking the professional course in Waynesboro, Virginia, the instructor comes up to me and says, do you have any experience with animals? And having grown up on a hobby farm, I said, yes. He says, well, I need somebody to watch my horses for 3 months while I go on tour around the world. You can stay at my house, and you'll be taken care of, paid. I say, well, that sounds like a great idea. I take the job. Come to find out, of the 25 buildings that I worked for in the country, the 25 warehouses that I could have worked for, one of them is 18 minutes from his house. They pull a bunch of strings, bend the rules, transfer my position down here to Virginia. I'm shocked. All this is just happening so smoothly. So I'm taking care of horses on this idyllic farm in the Shenandoah Valley, mountains all around me. And 3 months is coming to an end. I need to find a place to live. My girlfriend and I, we can't just live anywhere. I'll get depressed if I move into an apartment in the city. So I'm cruising around on my motorcycle. I'm not having a lot of luck. I'm finding places, but they're expensive, or they're located right on the street, and I'm gonna feel bummed out, like my life is going downhill. I can't live anywhere. I've got to live someplace nice to keep my moods up. My depression's getting a little better at this point. I'm not suicidal all the time now. I'm no longer smoking pot. I'm completely drug and alcohol free at this point. And I see this really nice farm road going off into the hills. I think that's going to be a great ride. Start cruising down it, and I come up over a couple of hills, and there at the top of this hill is this cute cottage surrounded by forest with its own property, no neighbors, perfect for a musician, with a view that looked like it was off of a postcard. The valley in front of it, there was a train going through with just barns, and on the other side of the valley, the wall of mountains. It was awesome, and the rent was the exact price I wanted to pay. I sent a letter to the landlord with some stiff competition. I got in, started a recording studio, managed to rebuild a band here with musicians that either had the same name as my old band members. My drummer in Wisconsin, he was red-haired and left-handed. My drummer here in Virginia, he was red-haired and left-handed. That was important to me, but somehow it happened. We had a lot of fun playing music, and I relapsed on marijuana. About a month after I relapsed, I was having a party at my house, got bit by a tick, pulled the tick out, thought, what are the chances of Lyme disease? Flicked the tick in the trash. 2 weeks later, I'm just knocked on my back with sickness, pouring sweat, feverish, totally disoriented, no idea what's going on, pain moving throughout my body, complete loss of appetite, couldn't sleep for more than a couple hours at a time, incredibly sick. Doctors couldn't figure out what was going on. I remained sick for months. The girl I was dating, we'd broken up. Right at this period, I meet a nurse. And I'm still really low self-esteem, don't believe anybody could want me. Why would anybody date me? I'm this poor, wannabe musician, nothing to offer guy, not very attractive, super skinny, raggedy hair. And she is beautiful, just a beautiful woman. And it's perfect that she's a nurse because I'm so sick. And she is aggressively pursuing this relationship with me. And she wants to get married, and she's from across the country, and I don't know what I'm going to do. Just then, a 1,300 square foot custom architecture log cabin comes up on the market. This place has 40 acres of nature preserve, a private pond, private stream on the end of a gravel road, no neighbors, and it's 30 minutes from my job. The rent is $150 more. I got the place. He was specifically looking for somebody to rent it that was in the Rebirthing Breathwork community. I mean, these coincidences are incredible. We move in there, and I say, look, I just got this new house. Why don't you stay for a while? We'll get to know each other, see if we can have a relationship. She moves in, and she starts caring for me. She has a dream that half of my face is paralyzed. She wakes up and she tells me about it. I don't know if you can see, but one of my eyelids droops a little bit. It was the beginning of Bell's palsy from Lyme disease. I'm about 143 pounds at this point. I couldn't eat a meal without becoming nauseous. Pain like I'd been in a gang beating all over my body. Pouring sweat all night long, no sleep, incredibly sick. We decided to go on a vacation to the ARE in Virginia Beach. I learned about Edgar Cayce, about his healing abilities, his hypnosis. We come back, I'm sitting at my kitchen table, zoning out, which was pretty much my favorite pastime while I was sick. And the words just pop into my head, Lyme disease. Lyme disease, isn't that the illness where you have joint pain? So I Google the symptoms of Lyme disease, and it's just check, 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 check. I might have Lyme disease. I tell my girlfriend, I think I have Lyme disease. She says, what are you waiting for? Get to the doctor. So I go and I get a blood test, and I'm 5 times over the positive limit. They give me antibiotics. It fails. Over the next 5 years, I suffer incredibly. Treatment after treatment, antibiotics after antibiotics, herbalism, acupuncture, strange salt and vitamin C cures, spiritual healings, energetic healings, Reiki, nothing helped. I was losing my life. My life was over. Every morning I woke up, it was like waking up to a nightmare that wouldn't end. My biggest disappointment in this time period was that Lyme disease is not fatal. I would never been more suicidal in my life. I would cry spontaneously throughout the day in front of people at my job. I was extremely sick. I still managed to have this band. I don't know how they tolerated me. I had a recording studio business going at this time. I, like I said, in briefly, nothing would help. After 5 years of doing this, I lost this woman. She left about a year after I got sick. Tried dating again. She left too. So I could no longer tolerate being around people. It was too intense. I was too sick. My condition was deteriorating until one night I woke up at about 2 a.m. with some very obvious bad symptoms. I was trained as an emergency response team member at my warehouse job, and I recognized that I was having a heart attack. Lyme disease attacks your organs, especially your heart. So it felt as if an elephant was sitting on my chest. I just couldn't get a breath in. Nausea, the feeling of impending doom was very strong. The room was going dark. I didn't know what to do. I thought, maybe if I poured a hot bath, it would relax me and I'd start to feel better. So I pour this hot bath, I get into the tub, and I think, my whole life's about to be over. I'm about to go meet my maker. I don't want to go. I don't want to die. Just then, words popped into my head. Take a Benadryl. Why? I don't know. So I take a Benadryl. A few minutes later, I started to feel a little bit better. More and more I felt better until I felt safe enough to go to bed. And the next day I had this swollen look over my body. And I decided I needed to make some changes in my life. I need to achieve my dream of becoming a breathwork teacher. I needed to be a better person. I needed to get right with God if there is one. And because He wants me to be a better person. I wondered what it could be that I was doing that would be killing me. I remembered about the 7 deadly sins. I started going through the list. Went through lust, greed, envy, pride. I got to pride and I thought, I'm way too smart to be prideful. It's like, oh, that's the one. Decided to start humbling myself. While I'm doing that, I'm thinking, what are the ways that other people are better than me? In this process, I got these intuitions to quit my job. It was really strong and it was persistent. I had some savings, I had a plan, I was going to become this breathwork teacher. I had some friends I could fall back on if things didn't work out. So I put in my 2 weeks notice after 8 years. I was a #1 employee, even despite the sickness. At the time that I quit, they were begging me to train the other employees. Well, 1 week after I put in my notice, I find a business card on my front door. Victor, please call me. I don't know who this guy is. I call him up. Oh, yeah, I used to live in the cabin that you're in, and I was wondering if you're leaving anytime soon, and I want to move back in there. And I say, no, I'm still living here, but I'd love to hang out with you and hear about this place. So he comes over. We're sitting at the kitchen table, and just casually in the conversation, I mentioned I've got Lyme disease and I'm in hell. He says, oh, you need to contact this woman, Carol Monroe. She makes Rife machines. Now, a little backstory. When I was 19, I heard about these machines that use radio frequencies to cure diseases, and it had been a lifelong dream to reverse engineer this technology and spread it to people because it supposedly cures cancer. I thought, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to cure cancer with this machine. He says she makes Rife machines. She cures Lyme disease. I'm like, no way, this is a real thing? These machines exist? So I call her up, go and try the machine. Within a week, my health did a complete 180. I got better so quickly that I went into shock. It was like my world went from upside down to right side up. It's too fast. I told her that I'd always wanted to build these machines. She said, what a coincidence. We're looking for help. They hire me to build these machines. About a week after that, it's my birthday now, and my birthday ritual at this point is to go to Virginia Beach and visit the ARE, just kind of walk around, get a hotel room. So I'm in the parking lot of the ARE about to get to my car, and this woman starts running after me. She had heard me talking about aliens with somebody, and she's going, alien guy, and I'm like, ooh. So she gets up to me and she says, how do you get interested in the ARE? And I say, oh, when I was 20 years old, I had this near-death experience, and it just changed my life, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. She says, well, oh my gosh, I'm on the board of directors for the Virginia Beach chapter of the International Association for Near-Death Studies. We need a speaker for 2015. Are you interested? I say, yeah. So I submit my story. I got accepted. I gave a speech a few months later with a great reception. 2 weeks after this happens, I am living on the top of the mountain in the guest house for a palace. I mean, this stuff is, you can't make it up. when the woman I'm renting from has a friend come over, and he says, "Hey, Victor, have you ever considered becoming a chauffeur?" I'm like, "No, it's just, it's just, I don't know, driving a limo. You get to wear a suit, you're going to meet really great people, and it's an easy job, and that might be just right." So I get that job. Then Carol Monroe calls me up. "Hey, I work at a place called the Monroe Institute. They need a shuttle driver. You'd be perfect for the job. Why don't you apply?" I never told any of these people I needed a job. I was determined to become a breathwork teacher, and I wasn't going to get a job and disrupt it. So I applied at the Monroe Institute. I get the job. Now I've got 2 jobs, my income is replaced, and I'm living on the top of a mountain. Well, let's see. That's about, that's the main bulk of synchronicities that happen to me. We're kind of running out of time. I want to show you an exercise that I know will put you in contact with the electricity that I felt of your soul, of the infinite love and the infinite wisdom. As a breathwork instructor, I've experienced this a lot of times, and I've had other people experience it. You get this tingling sensation, and I know what it is now. It's the electricity that's built up in the soul beginning to enter the body more as we clear the body and oxygenate it. So with your permission, I'll ask if you'd like to follow along with me with a short breathing exercise that is really wonderful. You can do it every day. But this is how it goes. It's called 20 connected breaths. It's a very specific way of breathing. What you're going to do is you're going to inhale and exhale through the nose. When you inhale, you don't pause before the exhale. You just let the exhale out without any effort, just letting the gravity of your body and the natural contraction of your lungs to push the air out. Then at the bottom of the exhale, without pausing, begin the inhale. You're going to do 4 little breaths and then 1 big breath, and we're going to repeat the whole cycle 4 times. So one cycle looks like this. Simple enough, and we can do that 4 more times. So, you ready? Okay. 4 little breaths, 1 big breath, no pauses. Just let the air flow out of your body without any effort. That's what makes it work. Okay, here we go. So thank you all for coming to hear my story. I hope I've inspired you. And thank you very much.
Can you answer some questions?
Yeah, do you have any questions? Sure.
Did you become a rock star?
Only in my head. I did not become a rock star. There's still time. Anything else?
I take it the palace you were talking about was Swannanoa?
It was, yes.
And no one lives there now, correct?
No one lives at the palace, the Swannanoa Palace.
So you're
no.
not on top of the mountain there?
No, I moved out of there. A couple more synchronicities placed me in a property with several buildings owned by the same person, a bunch of people my own age. All of us are into the same kind of music. We all spend our time similar ways. It's just uncanny. I'm right in the middle of the valley. This stuff just continues.
That sounds great.
It was perfect for me. my re-entry into the world after having Lyme disease and being a hermit for 5 years, really nothing would be better than being forced to be around like-minded people my own age. Anything else? Sure.
So you went to the center of the universe and you met God, and God was yourself.
Yes.
And you came back with the knowledge of your soul. And can you say more about that? How would you define the truth that you came back with?
I would define the truth that I came back with after meeting God and meeting my soul as to not take life so seriously. I'm only visiting here. My life is going to be very short in relative terms. 70 years goes by really fast. 80 years maybe. It goes by very fast. I'm just visiting. As soon as I'm done visiting here, I go back to that place. So is it really such a tragedy if I'm starving on the plains of Africa? Is it really such a tragedy if I'm dying of AIDS at the age of 29? Because immediately I return back to my soul. From that perspective, there is no suffering. It's just a drama. From the perspective of my soul, which is complete perfection, infinite love, infinite wisdom, infinite power, this whole life experience is created for my entertainment. That's what I'm here for, to have a good time. Not in a hedonistic sense, but to create beauty, to solve problems, overcome challenges, like a puzzle. Like life on Earth is a grand mind teaser puzzle that I'm supposed to figure out. And I can't get it wrong. Even if I screw up, I go right back into the arms of my soul and go back to this love. How do we experience more of that soul in our life? Well, our body is damaged, partly due to misuse, because there's such an inclination here on this planet to become miserable, angry, resentful. The average person is angry at a family member for 30 years. When we use this soul energy that's going through our body to be angry at people, it physically damages the body. In my experience, it damages the body and it cuts off sort of higher levels of feeling. The combination of this anger and lack of breathing. I mean, we do not breathe. We don't take deep breaths. Breathing is an afterthought. We hardly ever are aware of our breathing. This causes a buildup of waste in our bodies. Almost 70% of our body's waste is eliminated through the lungs. So if we're not breathing deeply, we are building up waste in our body. The combination of relaxing and breathing is the grand key to uniting the soul with the body. Once you start doing this, relaxing and breathing, make it a regular part of your life, your soul is going to enter into your world more because it can get closer to the flesh without burning you up. Your body is just like it's like a sports car. You've tuned up higher to be able to handle more speed and more RPMs. You'll notice what they call synchronicities. The synchronicities are when your soul or God are having a greater influence over your life. They can approach you more. It can influence the body more because we're relaxing. Another thing that I observed is that this infinite soul that each one of us has is so incredibly powerful and loving and all-knowing that it doesn't make sense why we can't feel it. It just doesn't make sense. It's like we're standing in Niagara Falls and we don't feel the water hitting us. We're standing in a raging river and the current doesn't take us away. This incredible love is pummeling us all the time. The only way we could resist it is if we use 99+% of our energy every day to push it away. We have to choose to push it away. That makes the path home clearer because all we have to do is relax. unwind these tensions, unwind this subconscious fear of death, a fear of being alone and like God has abandoned us, and begin to respect our body more by breathing, getting rest, and not being so tense. Once we start doing that, you start to feel good. And when you breathe, you feel this tingling. You get more sensation in your body. That's a unity.
Have you read the book by Michael Newton, Journey of Souls?
I haven't read Journey of Souls, no.
Half of what you said, it's exactly in that book.
So it confirms
Yeah.
it. That's
Yeah,
great.
he does the life in between lives regressions, hypnosis, and he asks people about their experiences, and a lot of what you just said, it's in that book. I highly recommend it.
That's really neat.
It's Journey of Souls.
Yes?
Can you, what's going on with the Rife machine now, and what did that do for you? Did that help your Lyme disease?
The Rife machine gave me my life back. After 5 years of being sick, I have some scars. My memory isn't quite what it used to be. My body probably isn't quite what it used to be. I feel better now in ways that I've ever felt. My mind is more clear than it ever has been. I experience health that's greater than I've ever experienced in pockets. The Rife machine continues to be a tool that I use not just for Lyme disease, but for other illnesses. I've gotten the stomach flu,
How
and I
does
used
work,
it.
though?
Oh, the Rife machine works by the same principle behind breaking a champagne glass with your voice. When you hit the resonating frequency of an object, it shakes it and it can break it apart. So what the Rife machine does is it uses radio waves to saturate the body and vibrate small items like bacteria and viruses, and it breaks them apart structurally, changes them chemically, and they die. It doesn't seem to affect normal healthy cells, I guess because they're much bigger. And what the machine looks like, the ones that Meisner Research, the company I used, makes, they're about half the size of a shoebox. They have an audio generator inside called a pink noise machine. That goes through a filter and an amplifier, and it goes out into some wires that you hold onto, and you've got some wires under your feet, and you get this tingling sensation that goes into your body. You just kind of turn it up until you feel it. Use it for a couple minutes every day. That's it.
How do you spell it? R-I?
R-I-F-E.
Okay, Rife.
If anybody's interested in one of these Rife machines, I have a handful of cards for Meisner Research.
Do you vary the frequency of the?
The particular model that I used, you do not vary the frequency. It's simpler for people with Lyme disease. When I was at my sickest, dialing the phone and having a telephone call was intensely stressful. Generating enough mental power to focus on a telephone call would be exhausting. So punching in different frequencies and then changing it every few minutes and punching in a new frequency, couldn't handle it. So this machine is specifically designed for Lyme people. Also works on a broad range of other potential illnesses. Theoretically, it's experimental, but it's been around since the early 1900s.
Evan Alexander, of course, he talks about the sacred acoustics and using sound to help emotion and to help gain access to spirituality into those places. Is this similar, just in any way?
No,
It
this
uses
is more of a,
frequency with that too.
compared to using sound to, like, I guess, retune the body, this is more of a destructive kind of thing. The Rife machine, you don't necessarily feel good after you use it. You don't feel bad, but you don't really perceive anything happening. You can't hear anything, you just get tingling in your hands and feet from the contacts. But the design of the Rife machine is to destroy pathogens in your body and cancer cells and stuff like that. If you're from the FDA, I'm lying. It doesn't do that.
It's both frequencies, it's just a different technique.
Right. Edgar Casey said that the medicine of the future will be sound.
Well, they're using ultrasound now in the brain for Alzheimer's because it somehow impacts the microtubules. I mean, this is real hard science. This is not.
Right.
This is hard scientists are very critical, but the ultrasound somehow has some effect on the microtubules of the neurons, and it actually is. They think it even rebuilds the microtubules, which start to disintegrate, break down in Alzheimer's and dementia. So somehow we know about ultrasound from looking at babies. So we know that frequency is going to have, that's all in physics now, it's all about frequencies and with how they're impacting molecules, life, biological systems, everything.
We are on the verge of a new era in medicine. I feel it. I
Yeah.
really think it's coming. It's already here, really.
Mhm.
Yes.
Are you still doing the breathing, rebirthing
Yes.
regimen?
It's more of a side thing. I'm still seeing clients on the
Oh,
side.
you? Oh.
Yes.
Are you taking any products or?
If you, we can probably arrange something. I live out in Charlottesville, quite a distance from here,
Oh,
like 2.5 hours-ish.
oh. Thank you.
She mentioned Evan Alexander. He's written 3 books, and in his 3rd book, he tries to conjecture as to why it is that we are not aware of our spirit. His conclusion is that our brain evolved from the reptile brain to a brain that's really very inefficient and very uncooperative. We send signals around by electrical currents that are basically sodium ions running into a little tube called an axon. That we're living in bodies that have brains that really are very inadequate to the task at hand. I was curious if you've considered that, or if you have any thoughts along those lines.
What my experience has taught me is that part of the trip to Earth is that we have to experience chaos. Just the same way that when we're picking out a movie to watch on a Friday night, we don't pick out a movie of a puppy running through the meadow for 2 hours. We might pick out a movie of Tom Cruise trying to jump out of an airplane and save the world and shooting 30 people in the process, because it's dramatic. If you were to watch the Tom Cruise movie 24 hours a day, week after week after week, you'd go insane. So what's happening here on this planet is that it's especially dramatic. And we came here knowing that it was going to be dramatic. There are all kinds of chaos problems that are introduced to our bodies and even to the animals' bodies, in my experience here on Earth. If you look at the esoteric history of this planet with the Great Flood, the stories of people living to 1,000 years prior to that flood, what must be happening inside of our bodies to reduce our lifespans to 10% of what they were? In my experience, we have chaos in our bodies from cradle to grave. And it's because of the conditions here on Earth. The spiritual, the mental environment is dramatic and destructive. The electrical environment, the radiation on this planet, it just, it puts us into a type of Walking Dead state, that when we overcome that Walking Dead state, then we start doing miraculous stuff like the yogis in India do, like Jesus was doing, and we can cause miracles. I don't think our condition is natural. That's just from my experience, though.